Back then, we were terrified of war with Russia. It was a terrifying fear of a nuclear war with the Soviet Union.
And break this down to me. So it's like, is it you're watching the news and is there like fear mongering? Do you believe it? Does it feel less propagandist?
100% there was fear mongering. Look, it's always been, if it bleeds, it leads in the news. You know, we talk about how bad the news is today, but the reality is, like 5 o'clock news, when you get home from work, it was always the worst shit that happened. Double homicide in Brooklyn. It's always the worst shit of the day. And also out of perspective, because it's the worst shit out of millions and millions of people, right? But the big one was always Russia. And you would see the Soviet Union, and, you know, you would see their leaders, and you would see their army, and it was terrifying. They were the last great communist empire, you know, before China, right? Before China really blew up militarily. Back then, we weren't worried about China. Everybody was worried about the Soviet Union.
And you felt fear as
100%. I talked to my wife, and she's younger than me, and she felt the same thing. And some of my other friends, I asked them, they grew up in different parts of the country, and they were like, oh, yeah, everyone was scared of the fucking Russians, man. Like, there was all those movies like Red Dawn, where the Russians invade, we kick their fucking ass, send them back home. You know, that was what everybody was afraid of. And then the wall fell. And so when the wall fell and the Soviet Union collapsed, we have to realize, like, that was a monumental change in the world. People relaxed. Like, we relaxed. I was like, thank God, there's no more war anymore.
So what year is this?
What year was the collapse of the wall? What year did they blow? I want to say 89? 90?
So then the 90s comes on, and then
what year was it, Jamie? 89.
Okay, so 90s.
So the 90s come along, and no one's worried about war anymore.
Yes. Is there a cultural apathy? Because
there's
the 90s,
a lot of bad things were made in the 90s. Some of the worst American cars that have ever existed were made during the 90s. We got real sloppy in the 90s. I look at, like, one of the things I look about with America, like how in tune America is what's their cars like? What's their cars like?
So Space Race produces some of the most beautiful cars ever.
Space Race and psychedelic drugs.
So Space Race is what?
Direct correlation.
60s?
Yes.
So you have all the cars that are coming out.
50s too.
50s, 60s.
63 was when Kennedy says we want to put the first man on the moon.
So they're using all that crazy space influence, or like spaceship influence, on the cars, and there's no restrictions, right?
Not much space influence, really.
I mean, some of these big, like, what is it, the big Cadillacs and stuff like that, they look like a fucking spaceship,
they do,
right?
Yeah, the old ones.
And there was no restrictions, right? Like, you didn't have to go, okay, it has to have this much gas mileage.
Right, none of that.